Galimera, Galispera, Galinicta, no matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. It's the North London derby this weekend, and does it spell disaster for the Arsenal? We're going to talk about it and get into the mind of the manager and the player right here on Squad Central. Let's rock and roll.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
North London derby, Mare in midfield. Let's get stuck into it. Might be, I'm not sure if there's a technical issue and it's putting this out as a pre-record or live, but here we go. We're going to rock and roll anyway. Welcome back to Squad Central. My right-hand man on the Total Football Show is Mr. Kyle Campbell. Bonjour. Bop. And joining us is ex-Luton Town manager and one of your favourites, Mr. Paul Buckle. Evening, Paul.
Evening, Sophie. Evening, Carl.
Evening, guys. Evening, Paul.
I, for one, I'm very happy that this international break is over and done with. And I'm sure Mikel is fuming. We did a show with Tom Canton from Football London, who came up with a concept, you guys, that a rule needs to be invoked, especially for the September international window, in that if you've played the amount of minutes that, say, someone like Saka and Rice have done so for England, the show is Give Me an International Break. You can see it in our library now. He was talking about if you played a certain amount of minutes, you should be allowed to be pulled from international duty in September. I'm going to get the manager and player perspective here from you too, because obviously everyone wants to play for their country. We had Warren Barton on the show on Monday, and he was talking about the pride that he felt when he played for England. But the amount of games, Paul, that players are being asked to play now, their health is not being put first. Pocketbooks and monetization is being put first, and it's an absolute outrage. What's your say?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting subject, one that certainly lends itself to a conversation. So I think now that how big the game is, right, in terms of the money that's invested in the players, how tight the titles are going to be, clubs need a bit of protection. I think that's the first thing I'd say. It's their assets. And that sounds harsh. It's great to go and play for your country. Of course it is. Everybody wants to do that. But they're at high risk, and it's costing Mikel, it's costing Arsenal, the club, with a top player being out. So it's there is a lot of football being played. I don't quite know what the answer is for it, but even when I was watching England play, I was thinking, let's Saka again. Like should it be an opportunity for somebody else? When they've got that many players at their disposal, and I think them conversations always went on between managers, head coaches, and the international manager. When are you going to use the players? Are you thinking looking at the bigger picture, or just solely looking at obviously England and that person's job? So I don't know if those conversations still go on, or if it's literally hand the players over and keep your fingers crossed. But it's certainly something that needs to be looked at.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. The other question too, Carl, was talking about whether or not Mikel Arteta has mastered the dark arts of the international arena, in the sense that, 2 or 3 players were pulled from key teams at the start of the break. You guys have even had what looks like a major injury to, I think it's Ake. The player point of view, your brother plays at Sheffield United. You guys have been around the game your whole lives. You've got, you grew up in the academy with Phil Foden. And you guys talk amongst yourselves. Is it getting a little bit too much?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's just it seems like it's every 2 months as an international break. I don't really think there's any need for there to be an international break this early on, considering we had the Euros in the summer, and then obviously after the Euros had a break, a short break, let's say, and then they go back to pre-season, back to club football, and then another international break. I don't really see the relevance in it. And for the Nations League, I think the Nations League at first was obviously important because you wanted to win it because no one had won it before. But I think now, I think it's pointless because, like, what does it do? Like, if you win the Nations League, it doesn't really change much, does it? Like, I think it should be for the players who don't get the minutes, they should play in it, for example. Because if you like the likes of Kane, Saka, Rice, even Ake, playing in the Nations League, what they're playing in it for? Because it doesn't really change anything if they do win it. If that makes sense. It's just, I just think it says unneeded football, unneeded minutes for players. I think realistically, when you think about it, though, even the players that just got called up, they're getting called up for a reason because they're playing a lot of minutes for their team, and they're getting shown like their ability is getting shown week in, week out. I just don't really think there was a need for this international break, and it's showing now because the amount of players that are getting injured from it, it's just not ideal.
You know, I know that the Nations League also kind of makes up for qualifications for World Cup. And at the end of the day, you know, people, I think in England in particular, want to get their hands on a particular trophy. And Paul, you're right. Like Saka and Rice played the entire game, the first match. And luckily, Saka was substituted yesterday. But we get ourselves into a position now where we've lost probably, and we have this argument all the time or discussion as Arsenal fans, is the Martin Ødegaard injury. Now, I think what the most annoying thing about this for Arsenal fans is apparently he had a niggle after the Brighton match. And then in that first match against Norway, tweaked something. At that point, I think we have to be strong as a club and demand that not only our player, our captain, everything good that happens at the Arsenal goes through on the pitch. And that's where I think Arsenal fans have every right to be absolutely fuming. We saw the picture of him on crutches leaving international duty. I was feeling fine about this. And when I was talking to Warren and, you know, we were trying to figure out if this was a catastrophe or not. Paul, can Arsenal cope without Martin Ødegaard? You're the manager. You're sitting with Mikel. You're his assistant. You're in training this week. What are the conversations? What are they talking about losing probably our best player for what looks like a month?
Well, just before that, if I can, Sophie, you make a great point about that communication between the club and the physios, right? The trainers and stuff. Because if someone's carrying an injury, and to Kyle's point, you know, the importance of it, you know, and the lack of importance, you've got to pull that player out. That player's got to be protected and come out if they're not 100%. And that's a big disappointment if that's been the case where, and I'd love to know what that conversation looked like, because Mikel would have been setting his team up around his best player in Ødegaard, right? You're prepping as a head coach. You're prepping for Spurs. You're looking at their strengths and weaknesses, and he's going to be in your team. You're not prepping without him, and then all of a sudden you lose him, and it's bad enough losing him if it's, you know, not known about an injury or, you know, something crops up. It's a kick or it's a, you know, non-muscle injury. But if there's something been there, you would expect the conversation. And I say that because fresh in my mind from being at the Wave Soph, where we had a lot of the women away at the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
There was conversations where players were injured. And I was like, well, what's the communication? You know, what are they doing? We need to be informed. It can't just be a cut-off when the player goes away. So, yeah, they're going to absolutely miss Ødegaard for sure. If you're Spurs, you're going to be happy, aren't you? When you see, your opponents losing a real strong leader and presence in the team, and it'll only give Tottenham a lift. But now, you know, Mikel's got to improvise, and the squad's been put together for a reason, and it's about now being positive and still thinking go to Spurs and win that game, which I think Arsenal can.
Kyle, I know that we have banter City versus Arsenal, and there's a long way to go in the season yet, and anything can happen. But of course, getting behind Man City is a challenge. We've always been a little ahead of you. I'm using the reverse psychology, guys, and let's be behind them and we can catch them up. The last 2 seasons, the other way around hasn't quite worked for us. But when you have a player like Ødegaard, what is your take about Arsenal playing Tottenham on Sunday at theirs without, I think, someone who's become one of the best midfielders in the world, let alone in the Premier League?
I think it's one game plan out the window in my eyes, because I think Spurs play such a high line. Ødegaard would just be able to find little pockets, slip it into the likes of Martinelli, Trossard, Sterling, or even Havertz. I think Ødegaard is probably the only real player who can do that for Arsenal. Like, even he could go missing in the game and he could still thread the ball through, like, out of nowhere, and you're in 1-on-1, or it's a 3v1, for example. I think missing him against Spurs is a big miss, because technically, and he's got vision as well. And as I said, Spurs' high line, they don't change the way they play. They'll always go for it, especially against Arsenal at Spurs as well. And now they know, obviously, Ødegaard probably won't be fit for the game. I think it gives them a real chance to go for it now, doesn't it? Because Arsenal haven't got that, well, you could say, division. They've lost the vision now, because if I was to really look at it, in Arsenal's midfield now, who is the vision? Obviously you got Jorginho, you got Nawani maybe. He could maybe do it, but he's young. He's young, isn't he? And obviously you got Partey. So one of them will have to step up, I think.
Right. Let's get stuck into this then, because I really want your take, and I want everyone who now can speak in live chat. I'm such an idiot. So when I set up the show, I disabled the live chat. I've got too many things happening and I need an intern, and I disabled the live chat. So just refresh your browser and you will be able to comment in live chat. My apologies, squaddies. I failed you. I should get a red card, but I think I'm just going to start off with an easy yellow. And then if I screw up again, I'll get another yellow and I'll be off. And then Kyle can host the show.
Take over. Do you mind if I build on what Kyle said there?
Yeah, let's jump in. I want this to be like an organic conversation about what the heck we're going to do.
He's so right, because Ødegaard, in a tight game, can just open you up in an instant with his vision, right? And his weight of pass, he can put people in. And I think if he was playing against a low block, you might miss him a bit more. When you got to thread it around Kyle and look for the spaces, right? Tottenham will give Arsenal space. And I don't actually think it'll have to be a really great pass, because there's so much space behind them, centrally and wide areas. So I think it's, in a way, a good one for him to miss, because anyone can put that ball through. When you've got that space behind, and Arsenal have got pace, especially in the wide areas, if he decides to play Sterling, or Martinelli. I don't know what you think on that.
I think Arsenal got the pace. I think realistically, he should go for, obviously, Sterling and Martinelli, or Sterling, Trossard, whatever he wants to do, mix it up. But I think you need pace against Spurs, because obviously you have the high line, etc. I think you are right. I think anyone can find that ball in behind, because obviously the line they play, you can just thread it through the gap and they're in realistically. But I just think that's Ødegaard's bread and butter, I think, personally, to thread them balls in. But again, Jorginho can do that. Partey can do that. So I do agree with you at that point, actually. I do agree. But at the same time, who knows? I doubt Tottenham are going to change the way they play, but and I doubt they're going to sit back at home. But if they were to sit back at home, then obviously that's when you do need another guard to find little pockets. I do think you're right.
Do you guys think Arsenal will change, Soph, the way they're playing? Going to play?
It's a really good question, because this is what I've been toying with. And when I was putting the show together, I was thinking, right, who is he going to trust? Because Mikel is a man of trust. Once you lose his trust in a game, and the most recent example I can give you guys is Kivior, who played really badly in the Bayern Munich Champions League game at home and never really got a sniff back in the side after that. But then, because of the Tomiyasu injury and Calafiori injury and the transfer window, he understood and he realized that, we actually need that backup, but which we don't appear to have in midfield. So I can see I don't know if this is wacky and the squaddies will tell me, but as we know, on the left side, when Zinchenko starts, he plays that inverted role. When Zinchenko was injured, we saw Mikel adapt the inverted role on the right with Benjamin White. And I was actually thinking, is there a way that he would play an entire game with both of them inverting? And then you would have Jorginho and Partey, and I know a lot of people aren't going to like this unpopular opinion, maybe Kai Havertz play in the midfield. And then you could bring Sterling in to play with Saka and Martinelli or Trossard. Now, Paul, you can tell me if that's because Tottenham are fast. And what worries me about the midfield in particular is if you have Partey and Jorginho together, that's not a lot of pace at all. And even Kai Havertz, who I think does the defensive stuff really, really well, he's not the fastest player on the planet. So I don't know if that is too high risk, and Arteta doesn't really take huge risks. And I want to get to the young players with you guys in a second. But what's your take on something like that? Bearing in mind, Partey and Jorginho don't have the pace. And also, you would hope that a Jorginho can come on for a Partey with 20 minutes to go. It is a pickle.
Yeah, I think so. Against the ball is going to be very interesting, because if I'm trying to put myself in Mikel's shoes, I'd probably sit off a little bit more. Because if you get the press wrong in the middle, you're in trouble. And I think Rice is obviously a huge part of that, and Ødegaard with their football brains, right, of when to go, when not to go. So I would sit back slightly and play Jorginho and Partey. That's what I would do in front, with possibly Trossard in the space. I would bring Sterling in. I agree with Kyle. I think Kyle said that earlier on. I think this is probably come quicker than Mikel would have wanted, but this is why you've signed Sterling, isn't it? For this moment. And Sterling is a big game player. He's been there, seen it, done it. And I think that could be the lift that the Arsenal are looking for if you're in that team, with Sterling there in the dressing room ready to come and start. And it'd be very interesting dynamic during and after the game to see how that works. And sometimes, just sometimes, as a head coach, it can fall for you. And I don't think Sterling will let him down, but I would go with a double pivot. And I would bring Tottenham on to Arsenal a bit more and leave the space behind. And given that they scored, was it 4 goals in the last home game? Not to worry. I think it was against Everton. And catch him in all that open grass behind, all that open space behind, and try and get some 1v1s in there as well. That's where I'd probably go with it.
Kyle, the thing about Tottenham, I've seen a little bit about them this season and it was more evident in the Newcastle match, which I think most of us got to see, they do create opportunities, and quite a few of them. And I think statistically, they're up there with the best teams in the Premier League. The problem that they've had, a little bit like us last season, although not too bad, is that their conversion rate isn't that great right now. They're getting themselves in really great positions. They've got the speed, not only in the midfield, but on the flanks as well. And I think, and I hear what Paul's saying about the double pivot. What I believe will be the difference in this game, which usually I would say the midfield in a North London derby. But I think Arsenal fans who are panicking are forgetting that we have, on a par with your lot, the best defense in the league and a goalkeeper right now who's come into next level goalkeeping. What's your take on the chances that they create versus convert, and our defense to step up when we're missing someone like Ødegaard?
I think it's a game where obviously it's a derby, so teams are going to have chances regardless. It's football, we know this, and obviously Spurs are home, so they're obviously they create chances at home. We know that. I think Arsenal have got to get through the first 10 minutes of the game because obviously the atmosphere will be electric first 10 minutes. I think get through the game, settle them down, relax them. Then I think Arsenal will start to see more chances go their way. I do think Spurs will get chances in the first 10 minutes, for example, because I think Arsenal may be a bit shaky to start off with. Like, I can see it going a bit like Villa away for Arsenal, where Villa fans were on top of them and then Arsenal took the chances. Because I do think Spurs are a bit like Villa in terms of the chances they create, but they don't really take them that well. But you just don't want the chances fall into Son, because I think Son is the one who can kill off the game. I think give him a couple of chances, 2-3 chances, he will score. But then at the same time, you can say Arsenal, give Saka 2-3 chances, give Havertz 2-3 chances, even Sterling, he will score. But Arsenal's defence is so strong, so I do expect them to shop a bit and not give Spurs as many chances, because I just think Spurs' main threat is only Son. There's no one who I'm scared of in that Spurs side. When they had Kane, you could play, like they would play it into Kane, he could hold it up, he could thread Son in, he could play, like he could set other people into the game. But now they haven't got that Kane, it's just really Son. I think it's one-dimensional, I think, sometimes with that Spurs side. They've got Kulusevski and Brennan Johnson, but again, I do think they're quite similar in how they play. I think Son is their only real outlet who they've got. That's my personal opinion. So I just think if you shut Son down, I don't really know who their main goal-scoring threat is.
Paul, riffing off what Kyle's just said and kind of my defense versus chances and conversion, what's your managerial take?
Yeah, well, everything's built around XG now, isn't it? And it's it's pretty accurate. And yeah, Spurs will work the ball around the 18-yard box. They like to come through the middle of you, slide things through the middle, which again is why I'd play 2 holding midfielders to start with. I'd block that up. I don't see him scoring against Arsenal from the outsides with crosses. I think that the goalkeeper, you're right, David Raya has stepped right up now, and that back four is as good as any, Sophie, in world football, that back four. And they haven't conceded other than when Rice is sent off. Okay, they've not conceded, and they've gone away to Villa and been resilient. Not an easy place to go. So they'll take strength from that. And I just think that they really can catch Tottenham on the break. I know MIKEL want to dictate the game and have the football, but this is another big test for him to see the way he's going to approach it. Is he going to just stick to his guns and go and meet him up the field, or box a little bit cleverer with it and sit a bit deeper? But that back four is going to take some beating, because the understanding's there. And once you start to build that, especially at the back, it's very difficult to break down. And like I say, I think Tottenham will try to work it through the spaces, through the middle. Their back line will be right up on the halfway line, if not in Arsenal's half. And, if you're Sterling and you're looking at that and you're Saka, I mean, Tottenham will have to attack safe, else they'll get picked off. But, yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see what MIKEL does, actually.
Yeah, I'm curious too. And I wanted to put this comment up that they're coming in thick and fast from the squaddies. Thank you so much for sticking with it beyond my glitch, you guys, at ease. We don't need to overcomplicate it, says Mark. Jorginho replaces Rice and Trossard, can play in Ødegaard's position. Everyone else stays in their strongest position. I tend to agree with him. So with that said, PW says midfield, play Partey, Jorginho and Trossard. Leonid says double pivot, Jorginho and Partey, Havertz in 10 position and Trossard up top. Paul, just to stick with you for a second here, what's your take on what the squaddies are suggesting? And then I want to get to a young player like Kyle as well. In this match, a North London derby, a game you cannot lose. Fine to get a draw, but it is the game you absolutely cannot lose. Can you see MIKEL Arteta throwing someone like a Mare or a Skelly into the mix? We've seen young players emerge at City, Liverpool given chances, Barcelona, of course, notoriously giving 2-year-olds chances. But can you see him doing something like that? The squaddies believe in keeping it simple. Is this the type of match where you say, you know what, you're all talking about losing Ødegaard, you're all losing your minds and you're going crazy? He throws in some 17-year-old that has a blinder. What are you doing as a manager, and what do you think MIKEL will do?
I don't think he'll gamble the young players from the start. I think he'll have them up his sleeve if he needs to, if Arsenal are behind. And I think there's stages to the game. Carl mentioned it, the first. Carl's there saying, Tottenham will have chances early on. I agree with that, because then you'll have to pay respect to that. The crowd will be up. They'll want to get any home team wants to get something early in the game, right? The longer it goes on, you're the home team, you're not scored, the more desperate it can be. And you can get picked off. So I think being solid at the start will be important. I think that I agree with the squad is there, that keeping it simple, round pegs in round holes. They're not so bad, them players to bring in. Jorginho, Sterling. It's exciting. It depends which way you look at it. Sterling, I'm sure Tottenham won't want Sterling running at them, right?
No.
And Sterling coming in, new club, new opportunity, wants to prove a point. You start to spin it, and I think that's what MIKEL's going to have to do. He's going to have to keep it positive, because they have got a world-class players in that squad. And if you're coming in as a player, and I'm sure Carl will agree with this, you want the manager to feel, that he can trust you and that he's got faith in you. Okay, so I think it is straight swaps. I think that's still a good midfield. I think Partey and Jorginho is a really good midfield. Whether you play Trossard in front, and I think Trossard and Havertz are smart enough, to play in line, and one come under, one go beyond, which could give Tottenham a lot of problems. And then maybe look at Saka and Sterling driving inside, and going to goal. I think the goal threat will come from the pace on the outsides, like a straight ball through and a diagonal run. I think that's where you can hurt Tottenham. But I really, looking at it, I know it's a big, of course you want Rice, of course you want Ødegaard, of course. But you're going to know after that game, all of your fans and the Arsenal staff are going to know what they've got in the squad, because this is a test now.
Yeah. This is a massive test, Kyle. If you're 17, 18, are you wanting to play in this game? And what's your take on him throwing young players into the frying pan for a North London derby?
Obviously, you would love to, realistically, because they're the games that's why you play football, really. They're the games you watch on TV. If you just have, I love to play in that. And but at that age, I don't think it would be wise of Arteta to do that. Obviously, we saw it with Reece Oxford against West Ham that time, but that was quite a while ago. So it can obviously work, but at the same time, I think show respect to the older players, and start them, the more experienced ones, because if Emani was to play, and let's say if he was to make a mistake, and all the fans get into him, he's still young. It could really ruin his career in a way. and obviously his career at Arsenal,
Yeah.
because we know what these fans are like nowadays on social media. They could really get to him. So I think protect the young players and even bring them on. Even bring them on last 10, last 20. I think when you bring them on, slowly add them into the game. I don't really think they've got much to lose because the game is pretty much already is mostly done. So they can't really do much wrong. I just think all what can go wrong is that they don't really affect the game as much as they want to. But coming on as a sub, as we all know, is hard. It's not easy coming on as a sub, especially in North London derby.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with a lot of both of you said. Terence, you know, when Fabregas made his debut, it was a lot different then. Social media wasn't the cesspool that it is. And I completely concur. As much as I would love to see him, Waneri and Skelly were two of our best players in pre-season. I was so impressed with them when I saw them play here in the States. I thought they were brilliant, and they both seem exceptionally mature for their age. But Mikel Arteta is a protector, and much like Pep Guardiola, everyone wanted him to play Foden, throw him in there, but he nurtured Foden, and he was ready for the moment when he was called on, and he had nabbed a regular starting spot in that Manchester City side. And I think that there's a lot of pressure on Ange as there is on Mikel, Paul, because of course Mikel's got all the pressure, because this is the third season now where we're trying to catch Manchester City. Here we are with an early hiccup. I believe this is the players are going to do what they can do, right? How has he prepared them? What risks, if any, is he going to take? What does that starting 11 look like versus his finishers, right? But the pressure for Mikel now is these are the games where you're called the young professor, or a mix between Wenger and Graham, the next Pep Guardiola in the making. Can he close? Can he win? But this, for me, is a huge game for Mikel Arteta to prove that even without two of his best players, he can still get a result against Tottenham. This is a must-not-lose game for him. Am I over-dramatizing this when it comes to Mikel Arteta and what this match means to his managerial moment this season?
No, you're not. Just trying to picture what it'd have been like, when Rice got sent off. He's took that blow, and dropped 2 points, and he's losing him for a game, and then double whammy with Ødegaard. You got to pick yourself up first and foremost as a head coach. You're only a human being like everybody else, right? And is it I forget, is it the dog's name now? But hopefully he's lifting.
Win. Our dog. Yeah, Win.
Your dog. Yeah. Hopefully he's in spirits around the place, starting with the manager for sure, because the manager needs lifting as well. Sometimes that's forgotten, but the manager does, and especially with this type of news. So I think that now we would realise every single game that Arsenal play this year will be pressure, because Man City yet again, are just unrelenting. So when you're going for a title, there is no room for error at all, really, as a rule. You'll be saying the same thing next week, whether Arsenal win or draw. Arsenal have to go to win the games. It's just when they choose to win it in the first half, wait for the second half. That's where the tactical in-game management comes from the head coach. So if given what you've got in front of you, the opposition, right? And you don't know how the game's going to go. So we don't know how the game's going to unfold. Whether Arsenal go ahead early, are they going to see it out? Are they going to go? There's so much going on. But what I can tell you is the position that he's put Arsenal in now, you're a team where there's a huge expectation every single game, and none more than the North London derby. But at the same time, they're under pressure. Tottenham. It's not easy for Tottenham. They're not a great side, Spurs. Sorry, I've got a couple of brother-in-laws that are Tottenham fans, but unfortunately, they're not a great side. They're not a great side, and they play high-risk football, which I love and I respect him for. But will they change their way? I don't think so. And I think that will play into Arsenal's hands at some point in the game.
you know, you bring up a segue because I actually think, Kyle, as well. I love what you just said, Paul, because Spurs get overloaded a lot every single season. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that they had Harry Kane, England's golden boy. They were desperate for him to win something. Pochettino miraculously gets them to a Champions League final, but they did achieve that. They sacked Jose Mourinho a week before a League Cup final. Who does that? You've got to be absolutely mental to choose Mourinho over Ryan Mason, regardless of what is going on. And I do think they're a weaker team. And I actually think that their fans, even though Squaddy said that they've been in some Tottenham chats this week and they seem broken, I think regardless of the suspension, regardless of the injury to Ødegaard, our team is still better to beat Tottenham. And I think some of the fans who've had an absolute meltdown over the last few days have lost their marbles. I did think earlier in the week it would be catastrophic. This was in the first phase, as I said, of the Norway report that Ødegaard might be injured. But when you sit down and you examine our squad and you think about Mikel Arteta and what he's done so far, Kyle, I still think we've got a team to beat them. Agree?
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think if you look at the spine of both sides, Arsenal's spine is definitely better than Spurs in terms of, obviously you got Raya, you got Saliba, and then you can go Partey, for example. I think Partey gets into that Spurs midfield. He can have one leg and still get in, I personally think. And then you've got, for example, Havertz, Saka, who will walk into that Spurs side. I think if you look at the spine and look at the players around the spine, even without Ødegaard and Rice, Arsenal's side is still better than Spurs. So I do expect Arsenal still to win. It's a derby, so form goes out the window. We know this. But I don't see no reason why Arsenal can't go there and win.
And Soph, you know what? When you speak about that back four and that volley, and you're absolutely spot on. I mean, they've been doing it now for a number of games. You only need one goal because your money's on them keeping a clean sheet. So you don't need 2 and 3 goals. And I think Spurs' back line can be breached for sure. I think you can get out their back four. But yeah, that's going to be a real great foundation to work from, knowing if you keep a clean sheet, which they've done, okay, on 2 occasions, and again, only conceded 1 with 10 men, you just need one chance, don't you? And Arsenal have, in that front three, and the subs and the young ones, they've got enough in that squad to score a goal.
Okay, so with you guys have made lots of good suggestions for the midfield, and I think that we're all saying Partey, Jorginho, Havertz makes the most sense. Don't take too many risks. Go with what you've got, and then if you need to tweak the game as it evolves, then you can, start thinking about shifting someone else into maybe the Havertz spot. Havertz moves up front, etc. Now, what about going forward? Because, we've had Martinelli, we've had Havertz and Saka. Now, I know you guys have both talked about Raheem Sterling. We've got Trossard as well. I don't like it when Trossard plays in that upfront role. I like what the chaos that he causes. And I actually like the idea of some of the Squaddies and Arsenal fans suggesting that maybe Trossard could even play that Ødegaard role. He's got the creativity, he's got the hustle. Yeah. Does he track back as well as a Havertz or a Martinelli? Probably not. So there's a risk there. But who are you playing up front? I know you mentioned Sterling, Paul, and Kyle. And we'll start with you, Paul. What front three are you choosing if you're going for the Jorginho, Partey, Havertz midfield?
I'm going for Trossard in the 10. I'm not going to move Havertz. I'm not going to. I think them two can chop and change in their positions. A little bit like Dele Alli and Kane used to do. It's hard to play against. And I'm going with Saka and Sterling because Sterling's got the experience. And as I said, Sterling will be expecting to play, I would imagine. If you're Raheem Sterling, Carl, right, you're sitting there, you're thinking, I'm in. And, you know, Martinelli, it will be dangerous when the game opens up. Okay, I think that I think Sterling's got the know-how. I think he's got the defensive responsibility in him. He's a big game player, and I think I do think it will give the Arsenal team a lift. And if you're the Spurs back line, and you're looking at Havertz, Saka, and Sterling, there's a really good balance there. You're gonna have to be on the game to stop them three. So they're the three that I would go with. I think it's a really good team.
You got me all excited now. That sounds pretty bloody brilliant, Kyle. What do you think?
Yeah, it does. It does. I was thinking about doing double pivot, so Partey and Jorginho. Then I was thinking about putting Havertz in 10. And I was thinking about benching Trossard and thinking about Saka, Martinelli, Sterling, E1 up front. But at the same time, Havertz has been scoring goals. So I don't think you take a number 9 out of his actual position when he's scoring goals, especially in a derby. You can't do it. So I do think Havertz should start up front. But if I was a manager, I would say to Trossard, you can win us this game off the bench, because you know that Tottenham highlight. If it's 0-0 at 70th minute, 65th minute, you know Trossard could come on, and you know you can get 2 goals in 5 minutes from running in behind. He could, but that's if buts. You need it from the start, don't you? You need it from the first minute, and you need a good performance till the 70th. Then you make changes. So I would probably go Trossard in the 10, Havertz striker, and then Sterling, Saka, either wing, switch wings, just keep switching, because Spurs won't be able to live with them. With that pace and that directness, cutting inside, going down the line, crossing it into Havertz. Havertz is a big striker as well. I think that should be the attack, really. I think it should be Trossard behind Havertz, Sterling on the right, for example, Saka on the left, and switch them mid-game. I think Spurs won't be able to live with them.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have got me all excited, and just wanted to say a quick hello to Mr. Dorr, representing Nottingham Forest. As you know, we've got a soft spot for Nottingham Forest here on Highbury Squad. And Mr. Dorr, it's good to see you. We look forward to chatting to you in the future. And thanks for popping into the chat, Mr. Dorr, one of the good ones out there in the YouTube universe. And a huge Super Kev was a huge fan of his show, used to go on quite often. So thanks for popping in. I'm excited about this game now. You guys have totally turned my frown upside down. Although it was a tiny frown, it wasn't like meltdown like some of the other Arsenal fans on the old Twitter sphere and social media. I think that when you talk about Saka and Sterling or Martinelli, the speed, I hope he's not afraid to go with the speed, because the way they play so high, you know, we could absolutely demolish them on the break time and time again. Yeah. And we've shown that in previous matches against them. Our speed has literally killed them. And I agree with you about Havertz. One of the things we've lacked over the last few seasons, but we've regained, I don't think we've had it since Giroud actually, is Havertz's physicality up front in that number 9 role. Not only is he good at the shithousery, but his physicality and his mental attitude and how he stays engaged throughout the game and what he does, I think is totally underrated. And I won't have the disrespect towards Havertz. I think he's brilliant. And I think what he's been for Arsenal since January has been so important. And if you think about this game, could you imagine, God forbid, going into this game without Kai Havertz?
I'll tell you what, Carl's showing great potential. He's going to be a top head coach one day, Sophie. He's done me because Sterling's played up top before. And you ask any defence in the world what they don't want to play against is pace. Yeah. And with Martinelli, Saka and Sterling, if you did play them in a 3 up there with license to go all over the place, right, and then just get back into a slot against the ball, Havertz underneath it isn't the world's worst either. You know, you've got to think about set plays as well, right? Defending set plays. That, I tell you what, that front 3 is exciting. That's an exciting front three that all want to run to goal. And even if Tottenham were to drop off, those players can pick it up and face them up. You know, they can beat you with the ball and without the ball. So, yeah, well done, Carl. We might give Mikel an idea.
Paul.
Go on, Kyle, get in there. I love it. Absolutely love it. You know who we haven't talked about at all, and I guess it's because none of us are actually quite sure if he's fit, is we haven't even talked about Jesus, you know, because there's some fans out there. I was reading in a thread and getting involved in a conversation how some fans felt Jesus would be great in that number 10 role because of his ability to track back and how he grafts and works hard, so incredibly hard off the ball. I'm going to throw this one into the mixer before we wrap things up a little bit here, is if Jesus is fit, does he fit into this starting 11 or is he sitting on the bench? Kyle?
For me personally, I would put him on the bench only because I think in this game you need consistency, and I think Jesus 1 week will play really well, and I think next week he'll go missing, and I think you can't afford that in a game like this. I think in a game like this you need what you're good at. You need pace. You need a physical player on the pitch as well. Players who will get in front of the Spurs and make it difficult for them. And I think Jesus can sometimes go missing, and it's not ideal in a game like this of this caliber. So I would personally put him on the bench and bring him on. I think it's someone else to bring on as well. You really think about it. Like I'm looking now, if Jesus isn't fit, who do Arsenal really bring on to affect the game? If Trossard starts behind Havertz, and if you have Sterling and Saka, it's only really Martinelli.
We got Martinelli. We got Waneri. You know, someone like, I think Waneri and Skelly may have to be on the bench. Skelly by default. Waneri's kind of definitely in that squad, in that mix.
I think the squad
you've got Zinchenko. You've got Zinchenko who can come on and try and be a bit of a creative force with 20 minutes to go. But it's a good point. It's I think that our team, our squad, we don't have quantity, but we've got quality. I think we've got better quality, which is what Mikel likes to play for, and he's taken that leaf out of Pep's book. Okay, who captains the team? That's a really good question. If there's no Ødegaard and there's no Jesus, who is he going to make captain tomorrow? Why don't you tell me, squaddies, in the chat and in the YouTube comments as well? Who would be your captain? I know who my captain would be. I'm going to ask you, Paul. Who are you making captain? You've lost your captain. You've lost your vice captain. Who are you giving the armband to? For me, there's only one player.
Oh, you've come to me early doors. I was thinking, go to Kyle. Come on. He's the top man. Gabriel.
Big Gabby. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah. Kyle?
Oh, you know what? I'm tied between two players. I'm tied between Saliba or Saka. But I'm gonna go Saka. I think he deserves it.
Listen, for me, there is only one option, and that is Bukayo Saka. I love Big Gabby, and he may well get the nod. I don't think Saka will feel any pressure, any additional pressure whatsoever to be made captain in a North London derby. I do agree with you, Terence, and everyone, that Saliba and Big Gabby have earned the right. Jorginho could, if he plays, the seniority factor, which Arsenal go to. And sometimes for Arsenal, they've also gone with whoever's been there the longest. But it makes sense in a time where everyone's feeling a little maybe down about losing Ødegaard. Go to the player that has absolutely been a superstar in these North London derbies. Bukayo's time, Bukayo's team. Yeah. Let's rock and roll. That's what I say. You guys let us know too. All right, quick predictions from you guys. What does your crystal football tell you? What do you see, Paul?
Well, with Kyle inspiring me, even putting a striker as a captain as well. I'm loving it. I'm going attacking. Arsenal are going to be up in the first half. Yeah, I think Arsenal are going to win 3-1.
Nice. I like that.
Ooh.
Kyle?
Ooh. I think it will be... I think both teams score. The thing is, Andrew's never won a North London derby. I don't think, anyway. Yeah, he hasn't won one. Does it change with this team against a weak Arsenal side? I don't think it does. I think Arsenal win. I can see.
I love
Spurs
how you noodle on these things, because it's going to taste like vinegar coming out of his mouth, Paul. This is what we have to deal with every time Kyle's on, predicting any kind of Arsenal win. Although secretly we know that he has a soft spot for the Gunners. We've established this, right, Kyle?
Yeah.
Have we not?
Yeah. It's true.
We both do, mate.
Yeah. I think, you know what? I do think there will be a red card.
Yeah.
I think there will be a red card. I think there will. I think it'll be a big controversial decision. You know what? I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal.
That wasn't so hard now, was it?
I think that's amazing you said that. That's crazy. I was thinking exact same thing, mate. I think Tottenham are going to...
Yeah.
Maddison,
I do.
will he start?
Yeah, Maddison, yeah. Maddison, I think he's fit, yeah.
I
Maddison,
think...
rubbish.
Romero as well.
Romero.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bissouma.
Yeah, all day long.
Oh, Basuma, that's a good call as well. Oof. All right.
Yeah, I think Basuma's a great call.
That's a good call. Romero's a good call. Maddison could get, he'll probably start off guns blazing first 15 minutes and then he'll fade like he always does. On a quick fire before I let you guys go, does Lee Carsley get the England job, or is it too premature, Paul?
I think based on what's out there for the FA, and based on the two games that he's set up and the way he's set up and the style of play, I think that Spain have done it. I think they've shown it can be done. You don't need to go out there and in the wild west of the English game and manage and last about 11 months. I think, definitely. I love the two performances. I know they're not semi-finals and finals and all that, but I love the two performances, and I'll be amazed if Kyle didn't too, because it was a modern way of playing. It was front foot. Yeah. It was really exciting. I'm not seeing Grealish look like that. I've certainly not seen Kane have that zip. And to see us go pressing high and counter press, I would definitely, Else, what's the point in having him in the system as well? So if he's won a tournament with the other age groups, what's the point if you're not going to give him an opportunity?
Yeah. Kyle, did England make a mistake? If Lee Carsley was manager, could they have beaten Spain in the final at the Euros? Should he have taken Grealish? Should he have played Gordon? Does he get the job?
Yeah. I think he should, realistically. I think he should get the job. I think a lot of players, I think the opportunities he's given to players as well, like Gibbs White, he would have even got a call up under Southgate. I personally don't think. I think Southgate had way too much respect for the older players, the players who he managed at numerous World Cups, etc. So I personally think that I think he will get the job. I think he will get it. I think he needs a tournament. I think give him a tournament and see what happens, because I do think we'll be surprised. I think we will. I think we could win it. I think we could win it. I think he seems quite cutthroat. He seems like he doesn't really take any messes around. Like, we know Kane was injured at the Euros, just gone. We know he was injured. So I do think Carsley would have gone, well, if you're not fit, we're going to put Watkins there. Yeah. You're not playing. We're going to put Watkins there. I think Southgate went wrong with that. And I think that's a many reason to why we didn't win it. I think if we pressed high, if we didn't show Spain no respect, just got at them, showed our pace, showed our quality on the ball, I think we beat Spain. I think we just sat off them too much, and I think with Kazi, I don't really think he cares. I think he just goes for the kill, doesn't he? Really, but that's what I like. You know, it just showed that we didn't really take, I'll say, no bullshit really.
Yeah, you can say that.
We just, no bullshit. We just didn't really take any crap. Yeah.
Listen, Kyle's smashing it tonight. Yeah, the future host of the Highbury Squad right here. Kyle absolutely smashing it tonight. Paul and Kyle, thank you for joining. Before we go, I just want to give a shout out quickly to our partners Football Prizes. It's a new competition and it ends on Monday at 7:30. 2 tickets, a hospitality experience, Arsenal versus Leicester. And then when you put your hat in the ring, you can also win up to 14 instant prizes, including Arsenal versus Bolton in the Carabao Cup. Those cup games are always a lot of fun and you get to see a lot of the young players coming through. Please go to Football Prizes and get your ticket today. For $3.95, you could be finding yourself sitting in the posh seats and enjoying a little champagne and all sorts of stuff, courtesy of Football Prizes. So please go check it out. Paul, you guys get the last say. In a nutshell, what have I not asked you? What sentiment do you want to leave with the squaddies today?
Well, it's been a pleasure being on the show again, and with you both and meeting you, Carl. And I'll see the squaddies, or some of them, over Christmas, when I will be supporting Brentford, unfortunately. But if anyone's around in West London, I think we play the Arsenal on the 4th or no, maybe the 29th, something like that. I'll be at that game. So maybe I'll get to bump into one of the guys.
I love it. Brilliant stuff from Paul. And don't forget, you can follow Paul on Instagram at buckle_Paul. And you can follow Kyle here on Instagram as well. I'm going to let Kyle have the last word. Before that, I'm just going to say, don't panic, Gooners. Don't give up. It's not over yet. Yeah. It's never over until they're not podgy these days, the referees. We could say that back in the day. Until the dodgy referee blows the whistle. Did I say that out loud? Excuse me. We've got a good squad. We've got a good manager. They're under the pressure now because it's going to be like, they're going to think they can beat us and they're going to go into this a little bit cocky. So keep the faith. Kyle, you get the last word.
I'll say last word would be from me. Have a good rest of the week. Let's have a great weekend. And obviously, let's have a great Super Sunday, really. And let's see the Arsenal beat the Spods. That's what I say.
Brilliant.
They have to win. I'm being serious.
The conversion might be happening.
Yeah. The game, Soph, again.
Oh, well done, Kyle. Brilliant stuff. Yeah. At ease, squaddies, at ease. And Kyle, remind everyone, what's the rule here at Squad Central?
What's the rule?
Yeah. Don't forget
the good times.
That too. Good night, everyone.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.